Hi everyone, so we're going to start talking about our carbon cycle today. So to start off, we're just going to go over some of the just cycle in general. So we should have a decent idea of this after our carbon cycle adventure yesterday. But let's start up at the top. So at the top we start off when we have some sunlight coming from the sun, and some of our trees using some CO2 from the atmosphere is going to bring us to our photosynthesis reaction in our trees. So we're going to see our photosynthesis reaction occur. When that happens, we're going to see that some of this energy, some of this glucose, organic carbon, is going to go to our animals and our plants to feed them so they can both do some respiration. So this respiration is going to happen, and it's actually going to bring CO2 back up into the atmosphere. But let's go back to thinking about these plants and animals. So these plants and animals are going to die and go into the ground, and when they go into the ground, they are going to be decomposed. And these decomposed organic matter can do a couple of different things. These decomposers are also going to do some respiration and bring that back up into the atmosphere. But also we're going to see that these decomposed organisms are going to turn into fossils and fossil fuels. So these fossils and fossil fuels actually are going to bring us up to our factories over here. And when these factories give off smoke and they burn those fossil fuels, also cars and other types of machinery, we are going to get some emissions. Of CO2 and from factories, cars, fires, all these different things. But let's kind of map this out step by step. So the first thing that we're going to see here is that carbon is moving from the atmosphere to our plants again through this process of photosynthesis. So carbon is carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And as the plants absorb that carbon dioxide, they are going to create organic carbon, which is our carbohydrates or that glucose that we should be pretty familiar with at this point. And do that process through photosynthesis. So that's our first, let's say, step one of our carbon cycle. But remember, it is a cycle, so there is no actual steps here. Let's keep following our path here. So from our plants absorbing that carbon and making our organic carbon, we're going to see that our carbon is going to move from our plants to our animals. So organic carbon, or that food, is going to get eaten by the animals through our food chain. So over here, we're getting our organic carbon and we're moving it to our animals here. And then the next step in our path of carbon is going to be that carbon moving from plants and animals to the ground. And that's going to be in this decomposition area. So dead organisms and dead waste. They're going to be buried in the ground. And then decomposition is going to occur. And there's kind of two options that are going to happen. If there's a long period of time, we can see them turning into fossil fuels, or they can be released back into the atmosphere. Okay? So those are kind of our two options. One is fossil fuels, and two is being released back into the atmosphere. Just kind of to give it that idea here. Next, we're going to see that carbon is going to move from our living things to our atmosphere. So this is going to be that respiration from both plants and animals. So through cellular respiration. So plants and animals are both going to be doing cellular respiration, so taking that organic carbon, that glucose, and turning it into ATP. But during that cellular respiration, process, we are also going to be releasing CO2 back into the atmosphere. We can also see that carbon will move from fossil fuels to the atmosphere through factories, through cars, power plants, and all those different things. So humans are burning those fossil fuels, and the CO2 is going back into the atmosphere through these emissions. And then finally, the last part is going to be our ocean. So it's moving from our atmosphere to the oceans. So oceans are a huge reservoir. They store a ton of different carbon, but I want you to think about the carbon cycle for a second in the ocean. So let's draw the ocean here. So this is the ocean. So if we have a ton of CO2 in our ocean, and we have a plant here that lives in the ocean, our plant is going to do photosynthesis. So the CO2 is going to be taken into the plant, and the plant is going to release some oxygen and glucose. Then we're going to have our fish here. And our fish is going to eat the plant. But when that happens, we're getting glucose, and we are going to again release CO2 through respiration. So within our own ocean, so oceans do store a ton of carbon dioxide, we're also going to see a tiny little carbon cycle happening here within our ocean as well. So glucose is going to go to, and oxygen is going to go to our plants, animals I mean. And again, we'll see that cycle happening. It's bringing CO2. That CO2 again is going to go back into our plants and pump out the same thing and have a miniature little carbon cycle right there in the ocean. So that is it for the carbon cycle. If you do have questions, please let me know. But you want to fill out those notes, take good notes. If you have questions, pause the video so you can get everything that you need. And next, you're going to be diagramming this carbon cycle. So you're going to be making your own diagram to help you figure out the different steps here. Okay, I'll see you next time.